A lot of people ask me, how do I understand somebody? How do I relate to somebody? And this is gonna be a very unpopular answer. I don't think really anybody talks about this, but the number one way to understand people in the world, the number one way, the true way of understanding somebody is by suffering as much as they have, if not more. See, people want to be understood for their pain, not for their happiness. People want to be understood for the bad things that happen to them, not for the good. So when you can understand someone's suffering, when you can relate to their pain, when you can say, hey, I went through this as well, or I'm going through this right now, or I know how you feel because I've been there, that is when you truly understand somebody. That is when you can relate to somebody. Pain is the ultimate source of understanding. And people look at me like I'm crazy for this. People think I'm very depressed. I'm not. I'm not depressed. I'm genuinely like a very happy person. But I don't try to be happy. I don't wake up every day trying to find happiness. I don't. No matter how I feel, I do what I have to do, and that's it. And the outcome of you doing the things that you don't want to do is typically getting to a result that you want. In order to become successful at anything, you have to do things that you don't want to do. So the more you do the things that you don't want to do, the more successful you're going to become, and the more aligned with your version of reality that you want, that you are going to be. And when you start to align yourself with the most successful version of you and your reality, you become more happy naturally. It's just an organic thing. So you must understand that life is really about suffering. Life is about suffering. Life is a test of how much you can go through. How much can you take? How much can you bleed? How much can you sweat? How much can you cry? It sounds so bad, but this is what freed me. This is what made me happy. You know, this is a very dark saying of mine. It's a very darkly poetic thing I say, but I think about it a lot. You really want to understand my pain, you got to bathe in my blood. You've got to soak in my sweat, and you've got to taste my tears. That's how you're going to know who I really am. That's how you're going to know who I am. And if I want to do the same, I've got to do the same for you. Life is about understanding each other. We're social creatures. We operate in a social hierarchy, psychologically, biologically, and socially in all aspects. But we understand one another by the pain that we go through. That's why soldiers are so close. That's why they're brothers in arms. You ever heard that term, brothers in arms? That's why athletes are very close, because they go through the same pain. It's not because they're just around each other in proximity. You could be around someone at your workplace and never ever understand them. You could be around someone in school in your life and never really understand them. But when you go through the same pain they've gone through, and you see the things that they've seen, and you relate to them in that sense, that's where you two click. That's where you connect. And that level of connection is something that can never be taken away. It can only be magnified on by the amount of suffering that you have. And so you've got to give your life up to that higher purpose of suffering, of doing the right thing, of sacrificing, of staying away from temptation. This is what life is. See, the act of staying away from temptation in itself can be equated to suffering, right? It can, because you're not accessing that pleasure. But when you go through that pain, when you go through that discipline, you become better, and you become more successful. And you also align in your positives and your success, because that success is built from suffering. The ultimate way to understand somebody, the ultimate way to relate to somebody, the ultimate way to see someone for who they really are, to look them in the eye, is to go through the amount of suffering that they have gone through, if not more. So when you meet somebody that has suffered more than you and has gone through more than you, you're going to relate to them. You're going to respect them. That's really how you understand people.